Gator Bowl down in Jacksonville, Florida at TIAA Bank Field as the Kentucky Wildcats and the Clemson Tigers will do battle December the 29th, a noon kickoff on ESPN. Clemson right now, guys, a 5.5-point favorite in this game. The over-under is set at 47.5. Obviously, these are two opponents that Gamecock fans are very, very familiar with, as the Gamecocks played Kentucky in the second to last week of the season and, of course, closed out the regular season with the Clemson Tigers. So I'm sure Kentucky and Clemson will both be watching a lot of that film as they break down each other, study each other, what have you. And as we look at this game, guys, the top storylines, I think what you first have to look at, again, transfer portal, NFL draft is affecting all of these teams in college football and throughout bowl season. Can the Cats move the football without their top playmaker in this game? In case you missed it, there will be no Ray Davis, as he has declared for the NFL draft. He is out for the ball game. What is Kentucky able to do offensively? Because the offense really ran through him, right? They do have Demi Sumo Karngbae back behind him as well. They've got more of a stable of backs than just Ray Davis, but make no mistake, Ray Davis was the bell cow for them. He was by far the most productive back, and I think it's going to put a lot more pressure on Devin Leary and that group of wide receivers to make big plays through the passing game. So again, without Ray Davis toting the rock, without Ray Davis being the bell cow for the Wildcats, we saw him so many times pop off and in that final game against Louisville, we saw him against Florida, of course, earlier in the season. He was truly the dude that made this thing go and carried an offense that otherwise was not great, right? Because Devin Leary, I think we'd all agree, fell short of expectations this season. How is Kentucky able to move the football without Ray Davis, as he has declared for the NFL draft? Guys, on the flip side, sticking with the transfer portal, how do defensive departures affect the Clemson Tigers? Of course, Andrew Makuba, he is gone. Toriano Pride has committed to Missouri. They are gone from the secondary. So I mentioned Devin Leary. I mentioned Berrien Brown, Dane Key, that group of wide receivers. Does this all of a sudden open up things for Kentucky in the passing game, right? I think, make no mistake, these are a pair of teams that are suspect on the offensive side. They are really, really good on the defensive side. This could be a bit of a slugfest, but because of some opt-outs, maybe Clemson isn't quite what they were end of season when it comes to the defensive side of the football. Obviously, that front seven is still elite. We now know Barrett Carter at the linebacker position. He is coming back for Clemson, so I think it's safe to assume that he will play in this game. But again, how do portal departures for both Kentucky and Clemson, how do they affect the outcome of this ball game? Ray Davis for the Cats, and then Makuba and Pride in the secondary for the Tigers. Guys, this is potentially one last ride for Devin Leary, Kentucky quarterback, and also Clemson should be very familiar with him, of course, as Devin Leary played for NC State. I'm pretty sure back in 2021, he was the quarterback that beat Clemson in Raleigh. But Devin Leary, I believe he'll have to apply with the NCAA to get another year of eligibility. I'm not sure he'll get that. So this could be the last time we see Devin Leary in a collegiate game. And I think Kentucky's expecting that, obviously, signing Brock Vandagriff out of the transfer portal. So what does Devin Leary have in store after what was a really lackluster, I thought, guys, regular season? Closed it out in style, though, in that game against Louisville. Made some big throws in that ball game. What does he have in his final game as Kentucky quarterback and as a collegiate quarterback as a whole? Guys, we're talking passing games. Again, what can Berrien Brown, Dane Key, what can they do against a short-handed Tiger secondary? What can Clemson do? Can Clemson get anything out of their passing game? Cade Klubnik, I mean, that, you look back at the last game against South Carolina. They certainly did not win that game because of the offensive side of the football. We know, guys, it's Will Shipley, Phil Maffa. They want to run the football. It's an old school feel in the offense, Garrett Riley and company and what they do. What can you realistically get out of Cade Klubnik? I mean, again, they're facing a Kentucky defense that was pretty solid this year, pretty solid against the pass. I think there should be some opportunities there, but I mean, it's now Bo Collins is gone, obviously, and I know that Tiger fans will say, well, he wasn't the top target anyways, but still, to be shorthanded at wide receiver, Cade Klubnik, who's been very, very hit or miss all year long, I just don't know realistically like what you can expect. I think Clemson will once again have to lean on the running game of Will Shipley, Phil Maffa, ground and pound. And it's just about not asking Cade Klubnik to do too much. The thing is just tell Cade Klubnik, just don't lose the ball game. You don't have to be a superhero. I don't even know if he's got that capability. Just don't lose the ball game. That's what Garrett Riley and Dabo Sweeney, I'd imagine, are asking him in this game. Guys, does special teams play a role in the game? I think it's really interesting. Clemson, although the special teams was really, really good in that game against South Carolina, they've struggled to kick field goals. Kentucky's had their own special team struggles. You just wonder in a game like this, very evenly matched. Again, Clemson just a 5.5-point favorite. What do you get out of special teams? Is that something that could rear its ugly head or could rear its head in this game, depending on the way you look at it, whether you're a Kentucky or a Clemson fan? Finally, guys, I look at this game like, which Kentucky team shows up? Kentucky was one of those teams. Clemson as well, right? I think you could actually say this about both teams. Neither one of these teams met expectations this season, right? On the Kentucky side, they didn't miss it by a lot, but I think more so it was like the eye test. The way Kentucky looked this season, I just don't think anybody would argue that Kentucky met expectations in any sort of way. And it really started, guys, on the offensive side, right? Devin Leary, the passing attack, it just never lived up to expectation. Never was what we thought it was going to be. And then, of course, Clemson, guys. I mean, if you'd have told Clemson fans 8-4 before the regular season, I think they would have told you that you were crazy. Clemson, though, in the last 4 or 5 games or so, really turned it on, really cut it on since that Notre Dame game a couple weeks back. So which version of these teams do we get after the long layoff? What's the motivation factor of each team? I don't think motivation factor should play much of a role in this game or nearly as much as some others, because whether you're Kentucky or Clemson, you're disappointed in how your regular season went, and you're wanting to take some sort of momentum into your offseason. So I think both these teams are fired up, ready to go. But Kentucky, we saw them really struggle down the stretch. Then they beat Louisville. And then Clemson, they were hot and cold. Offensively, they were bad, but won 4 in a row to close it out. So what version of these teams do we get after the long layoffs for each respective group? Now, that brings me into my prediction for this game. Again, guys, Clemson, a 5.5-point favorite, the over-under at 47.5, guys. This is going to be, in my opinion, a defensive slugfest. I mean, you saw these teams at the end of this season could not move the football. I know what Kentucky did against Louisville, but now you have no Ray Davis and Devin Leary against a really, really good front seven. There will be more opportunities to throw the football down the field. Absolutely, there is no question with the players that Clemson is missing. Can Devin Leary take advantage of it? Can Barryon Brown, Dane Key, can that group of weapons, can they get enough out of their running game with Demi Sumo and the rest of that running back room, right? I mean, they've got other capable bodies for sure. But when you lose a guy like Ray Davis, over 1,000 yards rushing this year, 13 touchdowns to his credit, you've got the Raymond Jefferson kid, you've got Demi Sumo, Karngbae, but I don't know. I mean, again, you're talking about Jefferson and Karngbae, 175 rushing yards and 139 rushing yards, respectively. 1 total touchdown between the two of these guys. Like, you are losing a massive piece of your offense. And then on the Clemson side, I mean, guys, we all saw here what the Gamecock defense did to them in that final game of the season. Cade Klubnik, do you trust him at all to have any sort of productive outing, right? They're going to lean on Shipley. They're going to lean on Maffa. They don't have a lot of weapons on the outside. I think this is going to be damn near a boring game, a slugfest game, a defensive game. But when it comes to making a pick, I just can't trust Kentucky against that Clemson defense, which is still one of the best in college football, the front seven especially. I just don't see how Kentucky's going to move the football. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I think it's going to be a sloppy game. If you love run game and defense, this is the game for you. I think Clemson's got a little bit more than Kentucky in that department. I think they will outlast the Wildcats in, again, a really low-scoring, sloppy type of ball game that is going to set offensive football back years and years. I do think Clemson comes out on top, and I think they win the Gator Bowl. Guys, lock me in. Give me Tigers 20, Kentucky 13 in a game that, again, no Ray Davis equals no win for the Wildcats. I simply don't see it, guys. I don't see how Kentucky is going to overcome that loss, not having him. Do not be surprised. I could see Clemson getting a defensive score or something that's not an offensive score. It's going to be low scoring. It's going to be a slugfest. But I do like Clemson to not only win, but cover. And I love the under in this game, guys. I think the Clemson Tigers will take down Kentucky again, final score of 20-13.